right? I mean, look at that. We pretty much have to run that through Mike Strommel. That's frustrating. That costs a lot of money with nothing to show for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's next?
From farmer to gold king, when people hear the name Tony Beets, most picture the loud, tough, no-nonsense miner from Gold Rush, a man who swears as much as he digs. But behind that fiery personality lies one of the most fascinating rags-to-riches stories in Yukon mining history. Tony didn't start as a millionaire gold king. He began as a simple dairy farmer in the Netherlands. And today he sits on top of one of the most powerful gold kingdoms in the Klondike. How did that transformation happen? Let's start from the very beginning. Tony Beets was born in the small Dutch village of 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗡 in 1959. Life was anything but easy. His family worked as dairy farmers, and young Tony grew up learning the value of hard labor. Every day meant early mornings, cows to milk, fields to tend, and endless chores. But Tony was never just a quiet farm boy. Even then, he had a reputation for being bold, outspoken, and restless. While other kids dreamed of stable jobs, Tony knew he wanted something bigger, something that would break him out of the ordinary cycle of farming. By the time Tony was in his 20s, he realized that farming in the Netherlands would never give him the future he wanted. So with very little money in his pocket and a fearless attitude, he made a life-changing decision: move to Canada. Landing in Yukon wasn't glamorous. At first, Tony took on all sorts of odd jobs: pipeline work, construction, and anything that would keep food on the table. But then, one opportunity caught his eye: gold mining. The Yukon was famous for its legendary gold fields, and while many saw it as a gamble, Tony saw it as his destiny. Mining wasn't just about digging for treasure, it was about building an empire from the ground up. When Tony started mining in the early 1980s, he didn't have the huge machinery, million-dollar claims, or massive crews that he's known for today. He started small, just a man, a shovel, and a dream. Mining in the Yukon is brutally tough. The winters are long and merciless. The ground is frozen solid for most of the year, and the expenses are sky high. For every miner who strikes it rich, dozens go broke. But Tony was different. He was fearless, willing to take risks, and never afraid of hard work. Slowly but surely, Tony gained a reputation as a man who knew how to get gold out of the ground, no matter what it took. What set Tony apart wasn't just his mining skills, it was his attitude. Even back then, Tony had the fiery, unfiltered personality that fans of Gold Rush know so well. He demanded perfection, cursed out mistakes, and expected everyone around him to work as hard as he did. Some people hated working with him. Others admired his strength and leadership. But one thing was certain: Tony Beets got results. Throughout his journey, Tony wasn't alone. His wife, Minnie Beets, played a critical role. While Tony was in the field running mining operations, Minnie handled the finances, logistics, and the overwhelming business side of mining. Together, they were an unstoppable duo. Their children, Kevin, Monica, and Mike, eventually joined the operation as well, turning Beets mining into a true family dynasty. Even in the early years, the Beets family was always about teamwork. It wasn't just Tony chasing gold, it was a family effort. After years of grinding, Tony finally secured claims that gave him the boost he needed. Unlike many miners who played it safe, Tony went all in. He invested heavily in equipment, hired crews, and took chances that others wouldn't dare. And the risk paid off. Tony started hitting jackpots. Not small nuggets, but massive gold hauls that turned him from a struggling immigrant miner into a rising Yukon success story. Inside the Gold Kingdom, by the time Tony Beets had earned his first real fortune in the Yukon, he wasn't just another miner anymore. He was becoming a brand, a legend in the making. His kingdom was taking shape, and at the center of it stood two iconic names: Paradise Hill and Indian River. These weren't just mining claims. They were the foundation stones of the empire that would crown him the king of the Klondike. Paradise Hill wasn't just land, it was Tony Beets' throne. Sitting high above the Yukon valleys, the site became synonymous with Tony's no-nonsense style of mining. Unlike smaller claims, Paradise Hill gave him access to massive deposits of gold-rich ground. With his heavy machinery roaring, Tony built one of the largest, most efficient mining operations in the entire region. excavators, dozers, loaders. His setup looked more like an industrial fortress than a typical mine. And Tony wasn't shy about spending money where it mattered. He knew that the bigger the machines, the bigger the pay dirt. For Tony, mining wasn't about gambling. It was about scaling up until success became inevitable. While Paradise Hill was the crown jewel, Tony wasn't content with just one claim. He pushed further, securing the Indian River site. This expansion wasn't just about more gold. It was about dominance. Owning multiple major claims meant that Tony wasn't relying on luck in a single spot. He diversified, ensuring that even if one mine underperformed, another could pick up the slack. This strategic mindset is one of the big reasons Tony's empire grew so powerful. If Paradise Hill was Tony's throne, then the dredge was his crown. Most miners in the Yukon relied on modern wash plants and heavy machinery. But Tony Beets took a gamble no one else dared. He purchased an abandoned, decades-old monster dredge. This massive floating machine looked like something out of a history book, rusted, broken, and impossible to operate by modern standards. Most people thought Tony had lost his mind. Millions of dollars went into moving and restoring the dredge, and critics called it a vanity project destined to fail. But Tony wasn't just chasing gold, he was chasing history. Against all odds, the dredge worked. Watching it chew through pay dirt like a mechanical beast, Tony proved the doubters wrong. The project cemented his reputation as not just a miner, but a visionary willing to resurrect the past to secure the future. With Paradise Hill, Indian River, and the dredge under his command, Tony Beets started producing gold hauls that stunned even the most experienced miners. Season after season on Gold Rush, fans watched as Tony's crews pulled in thousands of ounces of gold, sometimes worth tens of millions of dollars. While others struggled to break even, Tony was setting records. He wasn't just surviving in the Yukon, he was thriving, building a fortune estimated at over $15–20 million and establishing his reputation as the undisputed gold king of the Klondike. But what truly made Tony's gold kingdom unique was that it wasn't just about him. His wife, Minnie Beets, was more than just a partner. She was the backbone of the business, managing finances, paperwork, and keeping the empire running smoothly behind the scenes. Their children, Kevin, Monica, and Mike, weren't sitting at home either. From operating machinery to managing crews, each one became an integral part of the operation. Unlike many miners who rely on outside labor, Tony built a family dynasty. Every ounce of gold pulled from Paradise Hill carried the sweat of the Beets family name. Of course, working under Tony wasn't easy. His management style was infamous. He cursed, shouted, and demanded results. Mistakes weren't tolerated, and he often clashed with workers. But here's the thing. People knew that working for Tony Beets could also make them rich. He paid well, and if you stuck it out, you walked away with experience, connections, and often a bigger paycheck than anywhere else in the Yukon. Tony's philosophy was simple. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the mine. And for those who stayed, the rewards were massive. By now, Tony Beets wasn't just a miner on a Discovery Channel show. He had become a larger-than-life figure, an immigrant who built a fortune with sheer determination, risk-taking, and a stubborn refusal to quit. To fans, he was the foul-mouthed king with a heart of gold. To rivals, he was the man they couldn't outwork. And to the Yukon mining community, he was both respected and feared. The secrets you didn't know. We've seen Tony Beets build an empire at Paradise Hill, expand into Indian River, and even resurrect a century-old dredge. But behind all the gold, glory, and millions, there are secrets that only a few people know. Some of these made him controversial, others nearly cost him everything. Let's uncover the hidden side of Tony Beets' gold kingdom. Tony Beets has never been afraid of bending the rules, but sometimes that boldness landed him in hot water. By now, Tony Beets wasn't just a miner on a Discovery Channel show. He had become a larger-than-life figure and immigrant who built a fortune with sheer determination, risk-taking, and a stubborn refusal to quit. To fans, he was the foul-mouthed king with a heart of gold. To rivals, he was the man they couldn't outwork. And to the Yukon mining community, he was both respected and feared. The secrets you didn't know. We've seen Tony Beets build an empire at Paradise Hill, expand into Indian River, and even resurrect a century-old dredge. But behind all the gold, glory, and millions, there are secrets that only a few people know. Some of these made him controversial, others nearly cost him everything. Let's uncover the hidden side of Tony Beets' Gold Kingdom. Tony Beets has never been afraid of bending the rules, but sometimes that boldness landed him in hot water. One of the biggest controversies came when Tony used a dredge pond without proper permits. Authorities accused him of breaking environmental regulations, and fines quickly followed. While many miners might have backed down, Tony brushed it off with his trademark attitude, saying fines were just the cost of doing business. This rebellious streak is one of the reasons fans admire him. He's not afraid of the government, inspectors, or even Discovery Channel producers, but it also shows that behind the scenes, the Gold King often walks a dangerous line between success and shutdown. One of the biggest controversies came when Tony used a dredge pond without proper permits. Authorities accused him of breaking environmental regulations, and fines quickly followed. While many miners might have backed down, Tony brushed it off with his trademark attitude, saying fines were just the cost of doing business. This rebellious streak is one of the reasons fans admire him. He's not afraid of the government, inspectors, or even Discovery Channel producers, but it also shows that behind the scenes, the Gold King often walks a dangerous line between success and shutdown. If there's one thing Gold Rush fans know, it's that Tony Beets has a mouth that could melt steel. His unfiltered language made him one of the most censored men on television. At one point, entire segments of the show had to be muted because of his constant swearing. While some critics called it unprofessional, fans loved it. The swearing wasn't just for show, it was Tony being Tony. Raw, unpolished, and absolutely authentic. In a world where reality TV often feels scripted, Tony's personality proved that sometimes the truth is louder than fiction. Despite the tough exterior, Tony Beets is deeply family-oriented. His wife, Minnie, once said, "Tony may look rough, but everything he does is for us." Behind the cameras, Tony is known to be protective of his kids. He's pushed Kevin, Monica, and Mike to learn the mining business, not just for today, but for the future. Tony's empire isn't just his, it's a legacy for his family. One secret fans rarely see is just how much decision-making Minnie controls. She handles the books, the permits, and the daily operations that keep the Beets empire alive. Without her, Tony's kingdom could easily collapse. Every empire has its cost, and Tony's was no different. Years of backbreaking work, financial risks, and constant pressure have left scars that no one sees on TV. Tony has admitted to sleepless nights worrying about equipment failures, lawsuits, and whether a season's gamble would pay off. Mining is unforgiving. One broken machine, one bad claim, and millions can disappear. For all the gold he's earned, Tony has sacrificed time, energy, and even his health to keep his kingdom running. Another secret is Tony's hidden role as a mentor. While his yelling and insults dominate TV, off-camera he has guided many young miners. Parker Schnabel himself learned valuable lessons from watching Tony's operations, even if they didn't always get along. Tony knows the Yukon isn't just about digging dirt, it's about strategy, guts, and vision. And that's the wisdom he quietly passes down to those willing to listen. Most fans think Tony is content with his current claims, but insiders know he's always looking ahead. He's interested in expanding his empire beyond traditional Yukon mining. With modern technology like satellite mapping, advanced wash plants, and even AI-driven exploration, Tony is preparing for the future of mining. His dream isn't just about ounces of gold. It's about building a dynasty that will outlast him. When the cameras stop rolling, Tony Beets isn't just the swearing king or the tough boss. He's a husband, a father, and an immigrant who turned nothing into millions. His story is about more than gold. It's about resilience, grit, and refusing to back down even when the odds were impossible. That's the untold truth of Tony Beets' Gold Kingdom. Outro, so what do you think? Is Tony Beets' Gold Kingdom the result of luck, ruthless risk-taking, or untold sacrifices that only his family truly understands? One thing is certain. Behind every nugget of gold lies a story of blood, sweat, and secrets that shaped the king of the Klondike. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned, because the Yukon still has secrets waiting to be uncovered.